We're not quite done with Trail of Blood just yet. There are two notes I failed to spot. I looked this up after playing the mission to see whether there were any further details I failed to spot. And it turns out that there were. There's this letter right here in the autumn section. Next to these apples and plum. My secret correspondent. I have found out something new. All this time I thought Sheriff Truart, possibly out of some misguided sense of duty, was acting alone against your people, but that is sadly untrue. As is his fashion, Truart was hired. Yes, and by the Mechanists. He has met with Karis, their leader, several times, and from those meetings came the order to systematically eradicate all pagans. Oh, and they're so clever. You are now officially potential obstacles to the greater good, who must be eliminated. You and others too, including a poor soul named Garrett, whom they pursue mercilessly. Why Karis has targeted him, I have yet to discover, but as of this letter, he remains at large. The others were unfortunately not so lucky as you and this Garrett seem to be. I fear your peril is too great. Sure, it can be handled, but Karis and his mechanists, stay away from them. I trust you are taking every possible precaution. My thoughts are with you. I remain, Lieutenant Mosley.
So it's been the mechanist behind my problems this whole time.
And then with
I hope this guy doesn't run out of blood.
Final letter located here. My fellow collaborator, I agree with your assessment that it is time to take drastic measures. Measures that will be no pleasure to undertake. However, they must be done. You are right, we must be rid of Sheriff Truart. With Truart out of the way, then the City Watch will receive new orders from me. It's the only way to ensure your safety and to preserve the integrity of the City Watch. Indeed, if any is left. I have a plan that I will tell you about, but in a few days. In the meantime, ready an agent to serve as assassin. Wait for my next correspondence. Till then, Lieutenant Mosley. Okay. So, that information, combined with what we saw in the cinematic, the encounter between Garrett and Victoria, does shed more light. Assuming that Garrett does spot all of those letters, and assuming that, assuming Garrett's gut and intuition and logic and what have you is willing to go so far as to trust the information on those letters, then it stands to reason he would see the Mechanists as his greatest nemesis. Of course, you have the Keepers, who have been warning about the Mechanists. Of course, you have the incredible influence the Mechanists have exerted over the city in such a short time. Of course, you have Garrett's own dealings and, the things he has witnessed regarding the Mechanists. Now you have the suggestion that the Mechanists hired Truart to fuck with Garrett. Now, we have established, Garrett has established himself that the Mechanists and Truart are working together, because he eavesdropped on that conversation between the two, where Truart was going to provide the bodies of indigent people, bums, the destitute and the like, people who wouldn't be missed. So, Garrett already has that established. He has literally no other clues or, factual base to go off of. So it's not a huge leap that the Mechanists would be acting against him. Say that he's not really willing to trust Lieutenant Mosley, or that Lieutenant Mosley may have a skewed view of things, even if she thinks she's telling the truth. Garrett doesn't really have anything else to go off of. That's why he flung himself through a portal to go into pagan territory, right? it adds, like, more credibility, these two letters, but obviously, like, the lurking suspicions are there. That said, Garrett still has a huge, like, he still has a huge problem with Victoria. Victoria, of course, is the one who removed his eye, one of his eyes, which was replaced with the mechanical one. And Victoria, obviously has a grudge of her own due to what Garrett did, involving Constantine and this whole fucking death spiral for paganism, which has led them into their current predicament, weakened and then only further so by the actions of the Mechanists. Yeah, the letters aren't, like, huge selling points, but they do contribute. You can understand Garrett's heavily reluctant point of view, based on the fact, like, what does he have to lose? You just gotta, like, leave the city and go somewhere else at this point? Like, fuck it, fine. And then, Victoria, like, jabs him, makes him bleed, and the Earth takes the promise. He's like, I agree. Like, what sort of gun show or fireworks display will happen between Garrett and Victoria, assuming this whole Mechanist issue could be resolved? Beats me. Why are the Mechanists actually after resolving Garrett? I don't know. Like, Victoria wasn't the one who was after Garrett in this situation, unless all of these letters were plants, unless this was a whole, like, ruse to lure Garrett here and get him to do the bidding of the pagans and act against the Mechanists, unless this is all a trick of some kind. But if you want to go that route, Garrett still doesn't have a fucking lead, really. It's more plausible to go along with the idea of working against the Mechanists for now. Garrett's done a lot of jobs, slighted a lot of people over the course of his life. Perhaps the Mechanists, like their benefactor, or in some fashion or capacity, connects with another job Garrett has done in the past. The Victoria-like existence seemed easy enough, but I don't have a good jumping point for, like, this one, other than Garrett has upset a lot of people. Alright, that takes care of this relatively short interlude. Next time, we will continue with the game.